Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with the Last Huntsman Outdoors. This is part 8 of the mid-size survival knife showdown. We're going to be doing slicing. Now I've been kind of trying to think of a way to make this about as fair as possible. And I think I'm just going to make it simple and just do some feather sticks. I got some fat wood out here, so I'm just going to do some feather sticks and just kind of see how slicey each one of these knives are. So stay with me. We're going to be going through each one of our top 10 mid-size survival knives and see which one does the best feather sticks for the slicing portion. Oh, also caveat, like I've been throwing out in every video, I think every single knife on the showdown is a great knife. I think every knife has performed well in different areas, and I think some has lacked in other areas. And you know, that's why they're on my top 10 though, is because I think that they're all great knives in different ways. So try to enjoy and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, while I'm at it, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Follow me also on Instagram, and I even started up a Facebook as well. So be sure to follow me on those as well, and enjoy. All right, we're going to start off with one of my good old classic favorites here, the Becker BK7. Now, I will be straight up too, these are not the factory edges on just about any of these. I've used a lot of these knives, but we're going to just go through and just start slicing. That BK7 can make some really fine little feathers. I would say right out of the box, the BK7 ain't really like the best edge, but it's so easy to put like a really good edge on this knife, and that's what I did on this, and especially when you polish it, just makes it a lot better. Got some fine little curls there. So what am I going to rate this at? It's pretty decent. I don't think it's the best though, but I'm going to start off, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. All right, next up I have a TRC Apocalypse. We're going to see how slicey it can be and do some feathers with it. Okay. It's not as fine of an edge as the BK7 was. And I'll be honest, I was not 100% impressed with the factory edge from this. I touched it up a little bit, but it still was kind of mostly factory edge. So it is decent for a survival knife. I felt myself having to do a lot more work with this knife though. I think if they kind of brought the edge up just a little bit, and also it being kind of more of a mid saber grind, it's never going to be quite as slicey. Although it did fairly decent for it being a mid saber grind. So I don't think it didn't feel as smooth as the Becker BK7 though. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. All right, next up we have the Reef Knives F6. Just continue doing my little feather stick slicing test here. This thing bites in really good. So the Reef Knives F6 has a kind of a mid saber hollow grind hybrid almost. However, it's a really good combo actually. When I first seen this knife, I was like, a hollow grind, I'm not quite so sure, but quite frankly, this one performs really well. And it doesn't matter what part of the knife I hit. It's doing just some super fine little paper thin curls on that. Thus far, I think the Reef F6 has performed better as far as slicing than the other two that I've used. I'm going to go out on a limb. A lot of people might not like my choice here, but I think I'm going to give the Reef Knives a solid 10 as far as slicing. And I remember when I've used this knife before too, and I'm not just basing it off of this one thing. I'm kind of basing a lot of my numbers on previous tests and just how it's done in the past and such as well. And the Reef Knives, surprisingly, is a very slicey knife. You know, a lot of people kind of poo-poos on that hollow grind, and this one just has just the slightest hollow grind, but it actually works really good with this knife. All right, next up, I got the SE6. Now, I'm having high expectations for this knife because, damn mosquito bastard, got some of my blood, but I killed him. Anyways, I'm having high expectations for the SE6 just because it has that hot, full flat grind. I'm going to give it a go, though. Oh, yeah. I think this is the best slicer thus far, honestly. So I might have to bump the Reef Knives down or just keep them both as a 10 because they both perform really well. The SE6, good golly. That thing was just making just the finest little paper thin slices. I'm gonna go ahead and just say it. I think the SE6 gets a solid 10 as well. I think it's very slicey, and you know, it's a full flat grind, but I've beat the crap out of this knife more than most people will ever do so, and it still holds up and still can do some fine slicing stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna give the SE6 a solid 10. All right, next up I have the Work Tough Gear Mountain Lion. This has one of the thicker blades on here. It's 1/4 inch thick roughly. High saber grind. Very broad blade. So I'm kind of having high expectations out of this one too. I'm going to give it a go though. Oh wow. Honestly, a lot of these knives are doing really well. Like, I kind of thought there was going to be a lot more disparage, but quite frankly, wow, this one is doing really well too. I think it's definitely on the same scale as the SE6, and that's kind of hard to believe since this knife is so thick in comparison. However, it just has such a broad blade and good edge geometry. And that's something I've noticed out of Work Tough Gear. Is, yeah, they're Taiwan made knives, but their fit, finish, and quality and their edge geometry is on par with knives that are much more expensive. So, like I said, I'm gonna just give it a good number if it's doing well, and this is doing great. So I'm gonna give this one a 10 as well. I think it sliced just as good as the SE6. All right, next up we have the Lion Steel T6. It has a broad blade as well, 3/16 thick, high saber grind. Let's see what we can get out of the Lion Steel T6 for some slicing. Now I will say right off the bat, I was not impressed with the edge out of the box for this one. It was about the same as like what the TRC was, but I did reprofile this edge and it does perform a lot better. However, I don't know if it's I could get some decent fine curls, but it's not doing the same as like what the SE6 or the Work Tough gear was doing, or even that Reef Knives F6. So it's not quite as slicey. Now, could I kind of do some more edge work on this and maybe get it close? Maybe. But it's not quite the same. Now, I know also just something, and for you all to take in perspective here, okay, because I know people are just slamming the keyboards and throwing a little bitch fit right now in the comments based on some of my scoring. You're not here. You're not feeling these side by side. And yeah, I could show you the pictures, but it's hard to tell just by looking at the camera on how these are actually performing versus me being right here testing these side by side and being like, okay, yeah, this one's getting real fine curls and this one's, you know, I'm making a little thicker curls. So all that being said, I think the Lion Steel T6 did pretty good, but definitely there's a couple others that edged it out, pun intended. So as far as slicing, so I think I'm going to give, I think it did about the same scale as like the BK7. So I'm going to give it the same score, a solid 8. All right, here we have the Tops Silent Hero, the original Mac Daddy Silent Hero. Pretty wide blade on it, high saber grind. I would say it's about 3/4 of a saber grind up. Let's see how it does on some feathering. My expectations, oh yeah, that thing, this knife actually just slices really good. It's definitely between a 9 and a 10. I think the SE6 Work Tough and the Reef kind of edged it out, but it definitely felt better than some of the others that I tried. So I think I'm going to give the Silent Hero, Top Silent Hero, a 9 out of 10. All right, here we have the Phobos Knives, Tier 1 BC. Same thing, we're going to just do some slicing with it, kind of see how it performs here. I'm not a super fan on the choil on this one, to be totally honest. I like the knife overall, though. I would almost just trade the choil out on this one, personally. Okay. Just trying to get used to the edge here. Now, this is the only one that I really didn't touch up the edge on. Now, to be fair, I want to make note that I'm borrowing this knife from Jacob Peterson, and I don't think I even touched it up after he used it. And be sure to check out his channel, by the way. He has an awesome channel, the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. But yeah, he beat the crap out of this knife, and kind of having to put a little bit more work in on this one. So I'm going to keep it real with you. Now, maybe if I touched up the edge or reprofiled it a little bit, it might have performed a little better. And to be fair, this has kind of a used edge on it. But it is Magna Cut, and they really hype it up to hold an edge really great. And before I brought it out here, you know, I tested it and it was shaving paper and hair. So, you know, but it's not slicing as good as some of these others that I've used. Honestly, thus far, I think it's not bad. It's doing pretty good. I think I'm going to keep it real with you guys, though. I'm going to give it a 6 on slicing. All right. Papa Bear Knives, Bush Bear. I've actually become pretty impressed with this knife. It has actually performed much better. Just killed a little mini horsefly. Attitude readjustment on that sumbitch. Anyways, yeah, by the way, here in Missouri, we say sumbitch. It's all one word, okay? It's not son of a bitch. Don't try to correct me or anything. It's sumbitch. All right, cool. Back to the Papa Bear knives. We're going to do a slicing test with it. It kind of has a mid-saber grind. However, it is 80 CRV2, and it's only 5/32, so it's the thinnest knife here, so that actually kind of changes things. It's doing pretty good, pretty good. I'm having to put just a little bit more angle and pressure, but not a lot. Definitely not like the Phobos long shot. I don't think quite as much as even the TRC Apocalypse. Also, something to take note on too, when you're using one knife to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and they all have different grinds and stuff, sometimes it takes a moment to kind of get a feel for a different kind of grind on a knife too. Pretty good. I don't think it's the best, but it's pretty good. I really like Papa Bear knives, and I really like this Bush Bear, but like I said, I'm going to try to keep it real with you guys. I think I'm going to give it a 7. It definitely did better than some, but with just that kind of mid-saber grind, you know, it kind of limits how slicey it is. I think if it was more of like a high saber grind or even a full flat grind, it would be just super nasty, quite frankly. But this knife did pretty good, so I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to stick with that. All right, last, well, and kind of least, as far as value goes, this is the cheapest knife here. Cold Steel SRK. Now, this knife is kind of a narrow blade on it. It has kind of a mid-saber hollow grind mix, a bit more of a hollow grind than even the Reef Knife does, for sure. So, we're going to see how well it slices and go from there. Okay. I am having to put a little bit of steepness on that, and it is. Now, like I said, I tested. Mosquitoes are bad right now. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting those fine feathers, kind of like the Phobos. And it's definitely serviceable, for sure. I mean, if you had to just make this work. But it just kind of lacks that fine finesse. So, ooh. Actually, I feel like this did a little worse than the Phobos. Just, I was having to put a little bit more pressure. And like I said, I touched all these edges up. They were all shaving paper and hair before I came out here. Well, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. The SRK, it's not marketed as like a bushcraft knife. It's not marketed as a, you know, fine slicing, just food prep knife or anything like that. It's marketed as a survival knife and a, you know, a good budget one at that. And it does that. It does that really well, and it's very serviceable. But, you know, as far as slicing goes, it just wasn't as slicey as some of these others. So, damn, these mosquitoes are kicking my ass out here. But anyways, so that being said, I'm going to give the Cold Steel SRK a 5 as far as slicing. Well, my friends, this wraps up part 8 of the mid-size survival knife showdown. This is the slicing portion, and you know, all I did was feather sticks. I could have done, you know, a whole ton of other slicing tests and kind of really got down to the nitty-gritty, but I don't got time, and quite frankly, I don't think a lot of people cares that much about, you know, that much. You can get a pretty good feel on how good something's going to slice just right off of how well it feather sticks. So I'm going to just keep it at that. Tell me what you guys think about how I scored each one of these, and, you know, keep it friendly and stuff. Also, like I said earlier, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. But with all that being said, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.